Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is TWiT Photo with Catherine Hall and Leo Laporte, episode number 60, recorded on June 5th, 2012. Bert Monroy.
It's time for TWiT Photo, ladies and gentlemen, the show that I look forward to each week because it's really about the art of photography, the technique of photography, but not today. And let's first say hello to Catherine Hall. She's back.
Hey, how's
we had
it going?
A great couple of shows.
We had an excellent time.
You were kind of here. You were on here via tape.
Spirit.
Yeah, from Norway.
But I missed you.
How's your foot? Is it feeling better?
It's taking forever.
Yeah.
It's still, I can't. Like, if you do one wrong movement, it's just,
Now, Catherine took advantage of the time that you weren't here because I think you had a big photo shoot, didn't you? How was that working on your bad foot?
Oh, yeah. I had a huge
you had a big
photo
wedding,
shoot.
didn't you?
Yeah, I just did
like
it.
Like a 3-day weekend?
You just brave through it.
You just do it,
You brave through it. Although, I have an interesting story. I was worried about my ankle the whole day. And I was shooting down. I was in this grass in this field, kind of on my knees, shooting. And I look down and I see this pattern in front of me. And I think, what's that? That looks like, and that's long and skinny. I realize it's a snake.
Oh, dear.
So then I think, it's probably no big deal. I walk away, and the groom goes, that's a rattlesnake.
Oh, dear.
And it's a baby rattlesnake.
Oh, in Marin? Where were you?
No, it was up in wine country.
Oh, my
goodness. But
goodness.
supposedly baby rattlesnakes are actually the most dangerous.
Because they're cranky. They are teething.
No, because they don't know how to control their venom yet. As they get older, they just pump it all out.
So I'll give you it all.
Yeah.
I don't know. Wow, that's terrible.
It was very
I'm glad
close.
you didn't step on it.
So after that, it was
that would have been insult to
all right,
injury.
my ankle is bad, but at least I'm not bit by a rattlesnake.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
So, but I've been very busy, and guess what?
What?
The app has launched.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is
a
moment
finally the build-up
that will live in infamy. So this is an app that you were using in Norway that I was very impressed with.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Well, it's Top Model Release, and it's for photographers that want to get model releases.
It's called Top Model Release.
I recommend for everyone. Right now, we have the iPhone version out, and we're working on the iPad version. So it's
what
be
you
universal.
were doing when you were shooting models in Norway, you would take a picture of them so that you know who it is that you're getting the release from. You'd show them the release on the iPhone. They'd sign it on the iPhone, and then you'd email it out immediately so you have it.
I have a copy, and they have it. And the thing about the releases, too, is I talk about this a lot on my website. Check it out, topmodelrelease.com. But you don't realize, you may be thinking you don't need model releases, even as an amateur,
right.
And shooting, and building this portfolio. And then eventually, you never know, someone may want to use one of your photos. Like they find it on Flickr or they find it on, you don't know.
Right.
And if you don't have a release, then there's nothing you can do.
Yep.
So they're not commercially viable.
And how much is it?
Right now it's on sale for $4.99. And it goes up to $8.99.
Because I don't get releases. And you're right. You never know.
It's so easy.
This TV thing may flop. Yeah. And I may need to become a photographer. May actually have to get some skills.
You could create your magnus opus and someone could find it.
Right.
And be like, we want this for $40,000.
Exactly. That woman who put all of her street photography in a trunk somewhere. And then
you never know.
You never know.
But the main thing is, I want to say thank you to the Top Model Release team.
That's so
because anyone that says creating an app is easy is lying. It's
you
so much
had a long
work.
beta period.
Productive Edge was the company I worked with, and they've done an incredible job. So I just want to give a shout out.
And it's attorney approved, just so you know.
Yes, and Getty Images also approved it as well.
Oh.
So
that's actually a good sign.
It's totally legit.
That's really real, yeah. Top Model Release, it's on the iPhone store right now.
Yeah.
iPad, you could use it with an iPad as well.
You can. It's compatible, but we're coming out with a universal app soon.
Great. Good.
Yeah. So that's exciting.
So now, do you have a tip this week? Or?
Yes, I do have a tip.
Oh, let's do that.
Now that the app's launched, I can actually get back to...
You can go to work. So CatherineHall.net.
CatherineHall.net/blog. So mine is be positively presumptuous. And what I mean by that is when you're first getting...
It's so funny. Your talk in Norway is about being an opportunist.
Yes.
And now you're a presumptuous opportunist.
I'm a presumptuous opportunist. I give myself all these glorious labels.
What, you mean like putting a model in the middle of the highway? Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, pretty much. Point of the story is that if you are enthusiastic about, if you have an idea or if you have a vision and you're really enthusiastic about it, then just do it. And involve the people that you need their help with confidence.
Right.
Because if you have any sort of doubt, and if I said to the model, I think it'd be really cool to have traffic in the street. Do you think there's any way you mind going out there?
She's not going to trust you.
She's not going to do it.
Right.
So instead, I grab her hand. Okay, now we're going out into the street, and I'm pulling her.
Right.
And I'm nodding my head yes.
Confidence.
And pulling her into the street before she even knows she's in the street, and I'm taking the photo. So there's no chance.
And it's a great shot. And as long as a cable car doesn't come along, it's going to be okay.
You know, and it's just one of those things.
Isn't that a great
If
shot?
you have an idea, if it's off the wall, or if you think someone's not going to agree, then that's even more the reason just to do it confidently.
Presumptuous, opportunistic. That's Catherine Hall.
Catherine Hall.
Catherine
In a
Hall.
nutshell.
I love it. It looks like we're really close to each other, but this is actually a double box. But if I put my if I put my head in.
Wait, then we can disappear.
That is a very strange shot. Anyway, hey, introduce our guest, because we have one of my favorite people in the world. You surprised me. You didn't tell me who was coming.
I know.
And then I looked up, and there he is, and I'm like, Bert!
So we have an icon in industry, but he doesn't take photos.
He's not a photographer.
How does this be? He's actually one of the... Do you know that only 7 people in the world have been using Photoshop longer than him?
I did know that because I have his first book, which was Alpha Channel, about alpha channels, right, Bert?
Actually, no, the first book was the first book, which was the official Adobe Photoshop handbook.
See, that I don't have.
Yeah, that was the first book, and it was the only book for 2 years.
Wow.
First book on Photoshop.
You're thinking of Channel Chops.
Channel Chops.
Yes.
Yeah, Photoshop Channel Chops.
That was in '96. That was quite a few years later.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a whole...
Bert Monroy is a legend. We interviewed him at Macworld Expo because he had a little mini exhibit there of his New York Times. He's an illustrator in Photoshop, a Photoshop illustrator.
That's pretty much what I do. I push the boundaries of Photoshop. I use everything in Photoshop, and I got to figure out what every little thing does. So I'm beneficial to photographers because I make them aware of things that are in there that they might not think of using.
And you may remember Bert was a regular on the Screensavers for many years. He would give us a Photoshop tip every few weeks.
3.5 years.
3.5 years.
48
He's even got
shows.
he's got the 2 from the birthday cake Sarah Lane gave you on the Screensavers.
Yeah, that was a surprise. I didn't get to finish my demo. I was upset about that. I'm doing my demo, all of a sudden they interrupt me, and Sarah Lane comes out with this cake and the 2. And
you're such a sentimentalist.
Oh,
you
yeah.
saved that all these years.
You saved all these years.
That's
and then what else
wonderful.
do you have on your...
and I was showing you guys, this is what's left of the set.
It's a little bit of rubber.
It looks rubber.
It looks like it's
Oh, it's
iron.
rubber. I thought
rubber.
it was iron.
Yeah, no, it's rubber. When they switched from the basement set to that modern penthouse set,
Roger Ambrose designed, who's designed our set here today. You might see some thematic similarity, except we don't have any rubber.
No rubber things.
Well, actually, we do. Come to think of it, there's some rubber over there.
There's some fake stuff because I remember looking around. There's some fake stuff. And I remember the last show. They said, "Do you want some souvenirs?" So I said, "Yeah." And I looked around. And I always thought these were cool because they were made of rubber.
Peel it off the wall.
Pop one off the wall. I've had it ever since.
That's a great thing to have.
Do you have anything, Leo?
I have something very similar. I have a rubber nut that's mine's under glass, like it's a precious item. I don't hand that around.
So I keep mine by my desk.
Yeah,
right there.
That's not great. Bert then went on to do Revision 3 Pixel Perfect after you left G4.
I did 160 episodes,
160 episodes. And we've been talking before the show began because I would really like to bring back Bert to the airwaves, and maybe sometime we can revive Bert.
If nothing else, I want him to be regular on TWiT Photo.
Well, absolutely. There's nobody does a better job with Photoshop. And I think you're right. I think photographers learn because of the techniques that you use.
It's just, forget the obvious and let's see what it can do, and mix this with that and you get a whole different effect. So it just opens the doors to people's imagination when they see that there's this other possibility.
Right.
That rather than just sharpen something and make it a little brighter, there's other things you can do to a photograph that really make it unusual. In fact, I want to show some stuff today. I'm going to take really bad photography and turn it into something cool.
Yeah.
So I could give you some pictures if you need any bad photography. I got a ton of it. You do big paintings right now. I mean, you've done all sizes. But
I've done all sizes. Not the last one, but the one before that was big. Yeah,
Times Square.
Times Square. And what I was pushing for there, first of all, it was the second painting that I actually did with the print in mind. The first painting was this thing called Damon, a train station in Chicago.
Oh, it was a beautiful, beautiful image.
A huge piece. And
a lot of detail. I mean,
it did have. They all have a lot of detail.
Incredible.
Yes. Yeah. And
how big is Times Square?
Times Square is 5 feet high by 25 feet wide.
And how many? Do you talk about pixels?
It's 6.8 .52 gigabytes is the size of the flattened
How many layers? How many layers?
Of the flattened file?
Yeah, that's flattened.
That's
Oh my
flattened.
gosh.
The layers, that's a little misleading because of the fact that it's just not one file. There's many, many files that make it up.
Yeah,
If
because
it
you
was
couldn't
one-
work in one
Yeah.
giant.
It's-
It'd be too big. You couldn't open it in any
It's
computer.
somewhere between 500 and 750,000 layers total.
Oh my gosh. That's actually where I met Bert, was at Times Square.
That's
And
right.
you were quite the spectacle. Everyone was coming to see the...
Well, the thing that happened there, and there's some great stories about that thing. Epson built this giant light box for displaying this thing because they came up with this material called display trans for backlighting, and it was perfect for Times Square. And because it's all lights, it's nighttime, so they built this giant light box, and the budget for that was actually for a show in Las Vegas, which was a signage show. So they showed it in progress; it wasn't done, and then it was going to be the New York show, which was a big show and a photo show. So I really hurried to get all my favorite photographers in place. Right?
So there's actual people at Times Square.
Oh, there's
So
about
it's the Times
160
Square.
people that are recognizable. They're all friends, family,
They're
and
all
industry
icons
people.
from within the industry.
You're in there.
I'm in there.
And
I hadn't made the
did
cut.
you know that?
I didn't know the cut.
Well,
I
you
didn't
know
meet
him
you till
yet.
then. Yes.
Yeah.
Next painting.
There we go.
So I'm in New York. I'm having dinner with a photographer, Stephen Johnson, and I get a call from Dano from Epson. He says, "We've got a problem." I said, "What's the problem?" He says, "We lost the print."
Oh, no.
I said, "What do you mean you lost the print?" He says, "We can't find the print." And so he says,
Dano
"We
must have
sent-"
loved making that call.
Yeah, and so what they had to do is show the one that was shown in Vegas, which was in progress,
wasn't done.
without all the photographers taken out. So what I had them do is I had a file, and it takes 6 hours to print. So there was no way to, and they had no material, so they couldn't print a new print.
And they're probably using one of these giant printers.
It
It's
was
like
the
a big
1180,
plotter.
80,
Yeah.
so it's 64 inches
Right.
by 25 feet.
Right.
So I had them print a little one of just the photographers, so that every photographer came by, like Jay myself, here you are. You're just not in the big one. And I was very disappointed because I really was hoping to show all the photographers their places, but.
Is there anywhere we can see the is it online anywhere, the final version?
It's online on my site. In fact,
There it is, right
on my
there.
site.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the one that's there now, you can't, if you click on it, you go into a Zoomify file, which unfortunately doesn't work on an iPad.
Where's
but
Leo?
Leo's right down there. There he is, right down there in the garbage
See
can.
where it says
In the
TWiT?
garbage can.
On the garbage can. Patrick and I are there.
Right.
and
where
his
you
name
belong.
is there. See, Leo Laporte, Patrick Norton, and friends.
That is awesome.
Oh,
But now
that's
tell
great.
us, we're seeing other people here. There's you, Bert,
There's
by
me,
the way.
yes.
There's your
We're
ponytail.
taking a picture
I
of my
recognize
wife.
that.
The two guys to the left of you there are the two guys who wrote Photoshop. That's John Knoll and Tom Knoll.
The Knoll brothers. Wow.
And Russell Brown is right behind Tom there, and Julianne Koss from Adobe, and Scott Kelby is right over there too. He's if you go over to the left of right up, go up.
It looks like Steve Jobs.
There's two guys.
striding out
They're
there.
on the next block over.
Next block over.
Right there, right up there. He's pointing
Just
up.
Shuey on the bike
There
is
he
You
is.
can
great.
actually
Yeah,
zoom
Chewy,
in quite
yeah.
a bit more.
Yeah.
So are you doing this pixel by pixel? How do you paint this? How do you do this?
It is piece by piece. It is in fact, I'll show you today and show you how each, well, not everything, but how I get in there and create all these individual
And we're
characters.
actually not seeing the full resolution here.
No. If you switch to my computer, I can do that.
Okay.
Here it is.
So this is another painting that you did. And would you say your style is photorealistic? Is that a fair...
No, because photorealism is a movement. And the photorealists, like Richard Estes and Ralph Goings, they adhere to the photograph. So there are things like depth of field.
Right.
Okay, so
Right.
things that are far away are going to be out of focus and so on. I consider myself more of a hyper-realist. It's just semantics there. But it's more like being there. Wherever you look, it's going to come into focus.
It's all in focus.
It's all in focus. So everything, it makes it more real.
Yeah.
So if you're looking really close, you'll see the little rust and dirt
Right.
on the nut in front. If you look way down, well, we'll do it in Times Square.
Let's see it. Let's see
Yeah.
it. So I think that's a better description. Hyper-real, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're in
Are you the
Photoshop.
only hyper-realist that you know of?
So far.
All right.
Okay,
So here's the 6 gigabyte file.
So here we go, and this is half. The 6 gigabyte file isn't going to open here, but
True.
But we're getting closer.
What you work on a big Mac Pro? How do you?
I work on a
that's what I
Mac
wanna
Pro.
know.
With how much RAM?
I've got 32 gigs of RAM.
Yeah.
I work on 2 Cintiqs side by side. So
Those are the Wacom
where you
tablets that
paint
are actually
directly.
screens.
Oh, so
Yeah.
you're using those. And
Yeah.
how do you like that? You
I
love it?
the Cintiq. It's it brought me back to the way I was trained. I was traditionally trained on
It's
a brush.
like a real painter. You're painting
I
the
hold
screen.
the stylus like a brush.
How
and
was
I
the
stand.
learning curve with that?
None whatsoever.
It's the other way around. The learning curve is with a real tablet.
I worked like this. Then suddenly, when the Mac came out, I had this bar of soap on the side.
Yeah, you're looking here and
Yeah.
painting here.
And then the tablet is like this. But when you look at your hand, there's something to be said, especially when you're doing soft things like hair. To be able to see exactly where you're moving really makes a difference.
So is going to the Cintiq sort of like from me going from a mouse to to this? Was just huge drastic. I would never want to go back.
Have you ever used a pencil and a pen before?
Oh, yeah, that's what I use.
It's exactly the
I would
same
never
thing.
go.
And then you will be working directly
seriously.
on the screen.
You're drawing on
Yeah.
the screen.
And you can put the screen down.
Right.
So, I have
So you
these
would
2
never go
screens.
back.
No. I have 2 screens, and then I have a giant 30-inch Apple HD, which is where I view things.
It's good
as
for
I work.
Oh, that's
tunnel, too.
interesting. So you're working on the Cintiqs, but you're also looking up at a much larger display.
Yes. I can show you that display in a few minutes. But yeah, there's
That's
Jeff
interesting.
Shuey. And
You know,
there's-
and I
there's
should mention
Scott
this
right
is
there.
CS6 you're using, and
Yes.
notice how fast it is. I mean,
Yes, it's
do
pretty
you
fast.
do you feel it's a lot better than the earlier versions of Photoshop? Do you like
Each
it?
version gets better.
Yeah.
Yes, they just add more stuff. It does become faster, more efficient use of RAM and so on. The tools get better. The 3D is a big difference in the new version.
Yeah.
So there's just so many enhancements in the next version. Whew, wait till you see that thing. But here,
You're already working with it.
I've been looking at it, yes. Here's the sense of the photorealism, or rather the hyperrealism. Like if I come in here real close to my daughter, right here, this is my daughter, and we look at her eye, you can see
Oh,
the
my goodness.
reflections in her eye, right?
Oh my goodness!
But now if we come up here and and we look in here, and we can look and see the stuff that's going
There's
on
people in
those
the
In the
windows.
window. That's so cool.
And then we can kind of go over here, and there's this last building way down on 59th Street down there, and we look there, and you can actually see stuff in those windows as well. See?
Wow.
So, and this isn't the high-res
So
file.
attention to detail?
Yeah,
of your strengths?
I would say.
Obsessiveness. You know,
Obsessive.
I always look at Seurat's pointillist paintings and think, this guy's crazy. And then I meet Bert Monroy and I go, okay, crazy times 12.
Do you have, are you OCD? Like, are you really attention to detail crazy?
Yes.
Okay.
I really get into everything. You see my studio; it's immaculate. People say, "Oh, you cleaned it up for it." No, it's always like that. I know where everything is. You know, I'm a Virgo, and there's a place for everything.
Oh,
and
I'm a
everything in its
Virgo.
place.
I get
Yep,
it.
there you go. You understand. Yeah, so here, these are all people, everybody here. There's Vincent Versace, the photographer, right up in there. He's driving a truck. So everybody's in here. Everybody who's, in fact, that's my son right there and his girlfriend. And here's the first product manager of Photoshop, Steve Gutman right there.
How many characters in total?
There's John C. Dvorak.
John C. Dvorak.
Going
Yep.
perfectly,
And his son. And here's a pal of yours right here. There's Sal.
Oh, there's Sal Segoyan and his wife.
Naomi, yep.
Naomi Pierce.
And,
wow, this is great.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of, and here's some Wacom people and
I love
Epson
the Wacom
people.
people.
What is he
Yeah.
doing?
Oh, there's Epson
It
people.
looks
What
like
happened here is that Wes just lost $20 to Dano. This is Reed. These 3 guys are from
There's a 3-card Monty game
Yes.
going
Oh,
on.
great guy.
now this guy's watching out for the cops.
Oh my
And he's
God.
he's the guy.
Now, by
and
the
these
way-
are Wacom guys, yeah.
You grew up in New York, obviously.
Yes.
This is a labor of love for you. You're actually painting a street scene.
Well, you see, the thing about Times Square is that I always when you mentioned about size, I always wanted to do Times Square.
Yeah.
But I could never feel it. I'd look at it and it just never captured. And the train station was the first one I did with the
Yeah.
print in mind because all of
Yeah.
a sudden they were 44-inch printers. So
Yeah.
I figured I'll do something, and it ended up being 10 feet wide.
That's a beautiful
by 40,
painting, by the way.
40
I love
inches.
that painting.
And then once I did that, I said, this is it. This is how I can do Times Square. The only way to do Times Square is big, like the place itself. So I started doing a bunch of different photo studies. There was 8 different photo studies during the production of it. But I did a photo study to see how far I would get, and I wanted to get a certain amount of angle. So I started working it out, and then when I started cropping and figuring out where, then I realized, oh, this is going to be 25 feet. I can it handle that? Can it do this? I ended up had to upgrade my machine at one point. There was a lot of changes along the way. It went through 4 different versions of Photoshop.
Wow.
Oh, wow. So what
take-
is a photo study, though? Do you know, what's a photo study? What does that mean?
I go and take shots.
So that's what I was going to
Yeah.
ask. Yeah. So you start with an actual photograph of the place?
Well, here, like for instance, here, right here, since they're by Toys R Us here, like for instance, right here, there's these lights here. Okay, all these lights up here, and what do they look like?
Right.
What are those bolts? So
You don't make that stuff out of whole cloth. You're
no, I'm making them up, but I'm basically, and I'm going to use an old version of Bridge here, but I do, and you'll see the photo studies. I'll go in and I make notes for myself. What do I need? I need these lights. I need these in, and I'll.
You
do
must have made a
whole
lot
bunch
of
shots.
trips to Times Square because
Yes, I
you're
did.
constantly thinking, "Oh, what does that look like? What does that?"
There
look
are, well, you're going to see here in Bridge. I'll open up one of the photo studies, and.
Apple's got to come up with faster computers just to support Bert Monroy.
We've had those discussions.
Yeah. I need
so-
an i20.
It was just jumping through all the stuff here. So let me go into, and not in here.
A good question from Dr. T while you're doing this. Do you have what's your backup system? Because you're
That's what I was thinking.
I back up
that huge files.
I back up to 2 removable drives. That if one machine breaks, I could take one and bring it somewhere else if there's a sudden earthquake or a fire.
So you
in the
keep
hills.
them bootable?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can take them with me at any time. So I'm constantly backing up to an internal drive and 2 external drives. I also then, once a month, will back up to yet another drive, which I then keep off-site completely.
Yep.
And in fact, off-site.
Because
Yeah,
it'd be
you won't
a-
be putting those in the cloud.
Be a tragedy.
nothing in
it's
the
just
cloud.
too big. Yeah.
It's too big.
It'd be a tragedy though to put a month's
Oh,
worth
my
of work
God.
in and lose it.
That would be very
Yeah.
painful.
Almost as bad as being at Photo Plus and not having it finished.
Exactly. See, here's the Times
we
Square
lost the print.
folder. Now this is a
He was a
travel.
little upset when I walked up to him and Photo
Yes,
Plus.
Lost
I was very upset.
print.
See, here's the study. So if I just go in here and it's just let's say go to study 2, and here you see that there are quite a few shots.
Wow.
That I have taken for details of certain pieces, so I can see what they look like, and then they become my reference. Like here's the front of the building and stuff like that, and all these different things. And those lights above the Toys R Us are somewhere down here.
Yeah, you got to get every little detail.
Every little detail. Oh, there's the lights.
Do you make
That's probably
anything
another
up?
thing.
I mean,
Oh yeah, I make a lot of things up. Most of them is made up. Certain things I'll have detail.
Yeah.
But then I make things like the TWiT on the garbage
Yeah.
can. That was made up.
Yeah.
All the people are made up.
that's not real. None of that's real. Yeah.
The people, they did pose. Everybody
Oh,
posed
did you?
for me. Yes.
Oh.
I took a lot of the shots. A lot of people, like John's shot I took. John comes over quite often. He came over with his son. I took shots of him. Whereas Greg Gorman that you interviewed last week, I sent him a sketch. I want you to look like this. So he sent me like 500 shots. But they were all good. They were all great.
Never
So-
ask a photographer for a shot.
Yeah, the same thing with Jeff Shewy. You mentioned Jeff Shewy before, and Jeff sent me like a ton of shots of his bike because I needed his bike. And,
Did he send more of his bike than of himself?
Yeah, more of the bike.
Of course.
Well, the bike is
Clearly.
the bike is pretty crucial. And the thing with the bike, there's a story about the bike here. Is that I originally had figured that this was going to take me 2.5 years. After taking 11 months to do the train station, I figured 2.5 years was going to be the case for Times Square. So when I started getting to the nitty-gritty down below, I did the bike. And I got into a lot of detail because
You
Jeff
could
and I
take a year on the bike alone.
Well, I took a lot of time, but I said, I'm going overkill, and I'll send him the image, and it'll be cool. It ain't going to hold up. So I printed it out, and it completely held up. And that's when I realized, oh, my God.
I have to do everything like
Oh,
this.
no.
The stuff that I thought was going to be a blob of color, which is up the street here, I thought this stuff up here was going to be just a blob of color, but, it's all legible.
What resolution are you printing at?
Well, I created it at 360 DPI.
DPI.
Yes. But I couldn't go to my normal, which is 480. I usually work at 480. I worked at 360, but that's...
Just to keep it smaller.
Just to keep it small. But,
Yeah.
these files, even though I was working with pieces at a time, the main composite, which there are 7 files for the main composite, in there's hundreds of files that make up all the elements of the central, like the central area
Right.
and stuff. And when I bring something into that central composite and I say save, I would go down, make lunch, and have lunch, because that's so mechanical, and it would take forever to save.
Oh,
it would just take forever, because these files were, they were averaging close to like 10, 15 gigabytes. So they were huge.
By the way, there's somebody in our chat room who says, Bert does the best work. I took a course in L.A. with NAPP, and he blew my mind.
No, that's good.
So you do some teaching.
But I hope he learned something.
I think he learned something.
I've been teaching for a long time. I started teaching Mac Paint. I was teaching Mac Paint way back in the day in New York. I used to teach at the School of Visual Arts in New York. Here I teach at San Francisco State. And so I've been teaching for a long time. I've taught for... And
do you teach painters?
I teach, I teach like at Pixar, I teach their painters, the guys who do the texture maps. I teach anybody who wants to learn Photoshop.
It's about Photoshop.
It's about Photoshop.
When you go into Pixar and you're teaching them, what are you teaching them in Pixar?
I'm teaching them all the tricks in Photoshop of how to make their stuff look better.
That was what was so much fun on the screensavers. Is we'd say, okay, he'd say, I'm going to do a brick wall, and I'm going to put your name on it in graffiti, and he'd start from scratch, create a brick wall, then paint my name on it in graffiti.
Yeah, everything was from scratch.
And it's amazing to see how quickly you can do that. I mean, you've got these techniques in your head.
Yeah, my paintings is where I come up with this. I do commercial illustration work, and I don't have the luxury of experimenting when I'm doing something for a client.
You need to know it.
This is where I experiment,
right.
and then I know the technique. And the paintings always challenge me, like this one. Just time was a challenge, but the whole point of the paintings is to challenge myself in some way that I'm going to have to create something that I've never done before. Some kind of an effect or some kind of a reflection, some kind of a weird effect. So there are things that I know already, and then there's things that I will add to it. And each time, if it's something I know, I'll just add a little extra just to see what it does. I get a little happy accidents by just doodling.
Yeah. Photoshop really is open to that. There's all these different things. I don't think you could ever understand what everything's going to do until you just do it.
And that's what I tell my students. I said, the best way to learn this stuff is to sit there and play.
Yep.
Just
you
play.
Can read all the books, see all the videos.
Well, show us some.
But show you something?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love this part.
All right, so, I'll tell you what. So let me do something from scratch, and then we'll do some stuff where we're manipulating photographs.
Okay.
I showed you her eye a second ago, and I love doing this demo because people really get into this, and there's an eye. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to just pick up the color of the skin right here. So I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to create that eye. And it's just going to be a couple of little filters. That's all it's going to be. I'm going to fill that background with that color, right? Before I do that, let's just leave it away so we can see what I'm going to do. With my pen tool, I'm going to basically create the eye. All right, so I'm going to go in here and create the shape that's going to be the eye. And then I close it off right here. Okay, so there's the basic shape of the eye. I'm now going to go in there and create the iris and the pupil.
How much of the stuff you do is vector like this, and how much of it is dot by dot?
A lot of it is vector.
You use shapes
I create shapes.
And the curves.
In cases like hair and stuff like that.
That you have to draw.
That I'll draw, but basic shapes.
The eyelashes you had to draw, probably, yeah?
Yeah, those were created. So here's my basic shapes, right? So I'm going to go in here and just put this right in the center. So there's my main paths, right? So I go to my paths panel, and I'll just save those so I have them, right? So now, let's turn these off for now, and I'm going to fill that background with that. And in a layer, and I put everything in layers. It's crucial to have everything in
separate
layers.
So it's easier to undo?
Exactly. For easy to undo, easy to take something and move it over or whatever. It's important to keep things in layers. The file does get a little bigger, but it gives you that ability, especially if you're working with clients.
Right.
Okay, the client says, I
don't like this.
I don't like this.
Go, okay.
Just change
it's gone.
Yeah, something like a sky. It's a nice blue sky. And the client says, I want some clouds in there. All right, well, you select that sky, and, okay, so it's
You use the Bob Ross
throw
tool.
in the clouds.
Puffy little cloud.
The client doesn't like those clouds. Then what? It's going to be harder to select that. Right. But if you save that selection or put it into a layer, it makes it real easy to make that
Very
change.
valuable.
So are you? Yeah, and sometimes people get tempted where they think, okay, I'm done. Right. I can flatten this portion of the file.
Exactly.
Do you avoid that temptation?
What I do is when I don't flatten it, as I do merge it. Okay, I merge things into a separate layer rather than losing my original layers. In fact, all the individual files that went into Times Square were merged into a single layer leaving the original layers intact.
So you always have access to the original layers in some form.
I'll do that here. I'll do that in a second.
So merge preserves the layers.
Merge will preserve the layers, yeah. And I'll show you how I merge, because there's a way of merging.
Well, yeah, I was going to say.
I'm going to pick a light gray here, and in that layer that I just created, I'm going to just fill that with that gray. So now here, I'm going to pick this area here. I'm going to get a nice blue. Let's say a nice bright blue like that one right there. And in another layer, which will be for the iris right there, I will take that path and fill it. So then the pupil. I'm going to bring this back to black and white. And in yet another layer for the pupil, I'll go ahead and fill that path with the black. All right? So there. So there's my 3 shapes, which I'm now going to automatically just clip them to each other so it becomes kind of like a mask. The baseline is, the base one here is the white of the eye. So I'm going to hold down my Option key and click between them so that they get clipped inside of that area. Now they still are individual layers, so I can go in there and move them around so that you can see, see. But they are clipped inside of there.
Right.
All right, so now I'm going to start making this eye look real. So I'm going to go into the layer styles for the iris. Now, an important thing to keep in mind
I know, that's really cool.
for everybody is that filters, layer styles, they all have names, right? And I tell people, forget the names. Look at what they do. There's a reason they give you all those controls, because sometimes the name can be very misleading.
I can never figure out what blend,
So that's why you go in there and you play with this stuff.
Right.
And here you're going to see where I'm going to change something in order to make it do what I want. I need a dark color right around this edge, the entire circumference of the iris, right? Now, the only thing that, like, this will give me a dark edge, right? But it's on one side. See, it's only on one side.
It's
I
like
want
a shadow,
it all the way around.
Yeah.
The only thing that's going to give me an even color all the way around is an inner glow, right?
Inner
so I'm going to go
glow.
inner glow, which gives me this nice little glow there. See it?
Yeah.
But I want it to be a dark color.
Right.
So I'm going to choose a dark blue, really dark blue like that. Click OK. It's gone. The reason it's gone is because it's a glow, the mode is set to screen, meaning any color that's lighter than the ones below display anything darker than that. And I created a blue that's darker than the other blue. So if I change the mode to that of a shadow,
it comes back.
there's my blue.
Oh,
See?
nice.
So now I can increase that little.
So instead of screen, use shadow.
I use
and
shadow.
this is why it's not intuitive. You have to try the different
Yes,
filters.
you have to go in there and say, what does this do?
What does this do?
Yeah.
Well, is there
Or
any
read a million
particular
books.
blending modes that you use most?
Multiply, screen, color dodge.
I've seen them
pretty
use them
much,
all.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
use them, whatever
Yeah.
is necessary for that
Yeah.
particular job.
Yeah.
So there we got that, right? Click OK, and I'll give the outer glow to the that part.
Oh.
Bring it up a little bit.
Very nice.
Okay,
Oh,
a little
nice.
bigger.
Look at that.
That's so cool.
And bring down the opacity so it's not so strong. Just bring it down and just give it a little glow right in there. Okay?
Look at that.
Click OK. Now, the little muscles. Those little muscles that make up the iris. So I'm going to create a layer right between those two. I'm going to create a little square right in here, just like that. And I'll go ahead and fill that with black. I'm going to give it noise. I'm going to give it some noise. Add noise. I'm going to give it a lot of noise. Whole lot of noise. I'm going to say monochromatic so it stays in the black and whites. Right there. All right, so now I'm going to give that a filter. I'm going there, and I have a filter here under the blurs. I have a little thing called radial blur. And radial blur has 2 forms, or 2 modes to use, which is the spin or the zoom. So I'm going to use the zoom and push it all the way to 100%. And I can specify where the point of that is for creating, like, streams of light or whatever.
Right,
But here I
star
want to leave it in
fields.
the center,
Yep.
and click OK, and I get that.
Look at
Oh,
that.
that
So
is
now I'm
Look
going to go
at that.
into
so cool.
I'm going to go into my levels and just kind of punch it up a bit, just so I get some stronger blacks and some stronger whites.
Now, how did you find that? Did you say, I think radial blur will give me that effect? You knew it well enough?
I knew it at that point that this is the one that's going to do it for me.
Yeah.
So
It's just over time. You learn and you learn and you learn.
so now I want
Or
to see
you watch
the blue.
Bert do it and then you go, I know how to do that.
I want the dark, right? So I'm going to set this to, in this case, multiply. So there's my dark tones in there. See?
Yeah.
Now I want to see it only inside the iris, and it is already part of a clipping group. So in this case, to confine it into the iris, I need to go in there and mask it. So I'm going to turn the iris into a selection, and since that's selected, I got that layer. I'm going to say, give it a mask, and that's going to confine that stuff into that area right in there.
And you can just barely see it, but there's the muscles in the...
And then I'm going to go in here, and I got a little file that I created ahead of time, just so we could, right here in TWiT Photo, see, I got the center portion of Times Square, right there. So what I'm going to do is, let me just switch here to...
This is going to be the reflection in her eye.
Yep. I'm going to grab this here. I'm going to just drag it in. You knew already. I'm going to drag it right into here.
Fine, Leo.
Okay, and I'm going to put it on top, right there. And I'm going to go in there and flip it horizontally. Why? Because that's what would happen in a reflection. You see like a little mirror image. So I'm going to flip it horizontal, right there. And
it's attention to detail like that makes Bert Monroy the genius.
I'm going to go in here and shrink it down. I'm going to shrink it down quite a bit.
A little transform there, just to...
Right there, just like that. About that size right there. And I'm going to give it a little warping, too. I'm going to go in there and say transform.
Because nothing looks... It's got to be a little curved, right?
Yeah, it's got to have a little bit of a curve to it.
Yeah.
Just enough of a curve so it starts to look like it's around that eye. And I can just play with these until I have it exactly the way I want it, right there, like that. Now, it should be only the light. So if I put this to screen, I'm going to get only the lights showing through. See? There's the lights showing through. And I can blur it a little bit, because it should be a little softer. So I'll give it a little Gaussian blur, just to soften it up a bit. A little more, like that. Click OK. And bring down the opacity just a tad, and there you can see that we have this nice little reflection in the eye. And then you start doing other stuff to it, like you go into the white of the eye, and you can take a little burn tool, and you set it up to highlights, and you can just go in there and start adding little tones along
I just
the
figured out
edges
what
and
we're
so
going to call your show. Bert Monroy's Magic Show. It's Photoshop magic. Every time he does this to me, I go, it's like a reveal, a magician reveal. It's like, oh, how do you do that? It's so much fun.
The chat room had a good question, actually. How come Photoshop and not Illustrator or some other...
I do use Illustrator. Okay. Illustrator is used a lot for creating the original vectors. I also work out my perspective. Like in the case of Times Square, being so big, the perspective of, up Broadway and down 7th Avenue, no sweat, because they were in the center.
Right.
But down 44th Street, those things were way out. So I would have had to create an image that was somewhere in the neighborhood of about 125 feet. So I couldn't do that. So in Illustrator, being resolution independent, I made it much smaller, and that's where I created all my perspective lines, and they go all the way out. Then I only take the sections that I need and bring those into Photoshop, and then I can start creating, because my perspective has been established. Here's an idea, and there was a little bit of John, but he never made it through.
Well, you don't need John, because you've already got another image of him, so let's not overdo John.
But here you'll see where we'll zoom into you here, and you'll see how you get made up right here. So, and there's all the layers. So right here, we see that there's only that background, right? The TWiT logo's in back there, and so on. And then there's you.
So you drew this from scratch? You didn't take it from our album art?
No, I looked at it. And
you looked at it?
Yes.
Oh,
man. And so here, we start to take away, and wait a second, there's the composite on top. Let me turn that off.
Amin Ross. I like that.
A young
How can we do that? I'd like to have that filter applied.
See? And then we add a little highlights, getting on in years there, and a little few more, and then the Leo that we know and love.
Later, much later.
See? But you see that everything is an individual piece.
They're all layers.
There's the blacks. There's the skin tones. There's all these different details, all these different little pieces that make it up. And if we look at just the background, let's just bring the background up, and then we look at the paths, you'll see that all the paths are there. See? Those are the paths that are created for the individual.
Are you doing that by hand? Are you doing all the paths?
Those are done by hand, yes.
Holy cow.
Yes. I've always drawn by looking. I still sketch. Now I sketch on my iPad. But,
so it's in effect a sketch. What do you use on the iPad to sketch with?
I use Sketchbook Pro.
Yeah.
And that's
the Adobe product. So
no, it's not.
No,
it's their product is the new PS Touch.
That's right.
Right.
Sketchbook Pro.
I'm not totally crazy about it, and they know it. I've told them. For me, it's for a photographer.
It's not for you. It's for somebody like me who can't figure out how to do all that stuff.
If I'm going to sit there and sketch, there are better tools.
Sketchbook Pro.
That's the one I like to use.
Autodesk. That's who it's from. Yeah.
And so that's the one I use. But there you can see yourself there, and how you would create it. All these individual layers that make up.
Do you ever feel tempted to cheat? Like, say, for example, just pull the TWiT logo.
There is an auto trace capability, right?
Yes. If it's a commercial piece, yes, I'll cheat every chance I get, because I got deadlines and budgets and stuff. But my paintings, there's no point to cheating. The whole thing is to challenge myself. So if I'm cheating, who am I cheating?
Right.
So who are your clients? I mean, who?
You might have heard of some of them, Adobe, Apple.
No, I mean, like, what do you do? So
Epson. What I do is, well, I just did a bunch of stuff for Epson. They got what they considered the dream team of 4 guys. They got Greg Gorman to shoot the stuff.
Wow.
Rob Carr to retouch it.
Wow.
Myself to then create the imagery, and then Jeff Sheary to put it in place. Yeah, I'll show you what these things.
That is a dream team.
Let me
yeah,
just
it's
shut
definitely
Times
a dream
Square
team.
because it's really big and it's slowing me down here. Let me just shut that down.
So, Bert, were you trained as a painter, as a graphic artist? What's your
Both.
background?
I was originally, my major was advertising and illustration.
Interesting.
Way back
Okay.
in the day. So I was...
And, of course, in those days, it wasn't on a computer. You were doing it in ink and paint. And
paint and using specking type and all these things, all these archaic things.
Yeah.
But I did that for, I was in advertising for 20 years in New York.
Do you feel it helped you to have that basic
yes,
mechanical
big time,
ability?
especially once we got into this.
Yeah.
The idea of pressure
You can
sensitivity
draw.
and tilt. I was trained with a brush.
Right.
So it makes it that much easier for me to go in there and utilize the brush and create the effects.
What do you use on the iPad as a stylus? Do you have one you like?
Yeah, I have. There's a new one, the Sensu brush, which is an actual bristle. That's
Right. I
pretty
have
cool.
one of those. They're
You
pretty
have one?
cool.
I didn't get
Yeah.
one yet.
I'll
And
give
I
it
have
to
the
you.
one- I have the little
Much
bamboo.
better in your hands than in mine.
I got a little bamboo one from Wacom, which
Right.
is it's nice also. But that little Sensu brush, I've seen in videos. I haven't used it so.
Well, let me see if I can. The guy from Art Rage. I think it's what you're talking about. It's a brush.
Yes, Art Rage. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
In Chicago, I think so.
Yeah, I will. I will go get that for you before you leave.
Okay.
This is my seal a deal that we get Bert on the network. I'll give you the Sensu
There we
brush.
go.
How about
Okay. So let's see. I'm pretty sure I put some stuff in here, and let's see.
Bert's like me. He has to look over the top of his glasses sometimes. It's the best way to get close up.
There's an Epson folder body paint.
Do you feel like all this fine work is hard on your eyes? At the end of the day, you must get pretty tired.
Yeah. It's
It's got to
kinda
be
rough.
hard on the eyes.
All right, so here's the tattoo. There was 2 of them. I'll show you. Let's open both of these.
So this is how you take somebody with a tattoo and take it off, or somebody without
I
a
added
tattoo.
tattoos.
You put it
now,
on.
This took a while because they kept saying, put more tattoos, more flowers, more this. And there was a lot more to it, which I'll show you. I'll show you when these 2 open up. The first job was these 2 girls that you're going to see here, and they're wearing different dresses, and then I had to do tattoos. Originally, I thought it was going to be real, tattoos, so that the front was the back of the. They said no. It's same girl, different dress, different tattoos.
Wow.
So then they're never going to see them together, so it didn't matter.
They do that a lot in catalog work. I didn't realize this, but they use just a handful of models, and they'll do things so that they can.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to take forever to open here. But we'll
No
let it
kidding.
go.
Large document
Yeah,
format, huh?
They are
Is
big.
there a separate format for large documents?
Yes, it's the
I've never seen
PSB.
this.
PSB.
PSB.
what does that stand
Yes.
for?
Photoshop bloated.
Photoshop big. I don't know. I really don't know what it stands for.
So
It's like
when you save as, you don't save as PSD. You save as
I
PSB.
save as PSD when they're small files.
Yeah.
I only save PSB when it's required.
Yeah.
There'll be
What
times
is that?
when-
What is
when
the
file
requirement?
so big-
More than 2 gigs, probably.
Yeah, when the file is that big, that like these 2 files are quite big. When the file is that big, it's going to tell you that you can't save it in that.
Yeah,
It says
format.
reading large document format.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to open up one.
We should just mention that Bert uses most of the time a Mac Pro, not a laptop, and 32
Yeah,
gigs
you should
of
have brought
RAM.
your laptop or your Mac Pro.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah, that would have been good. And set up here, it would take 2 hours. It
Yeah.
was just opening up one
Sorry,
of the files.
we can edit out.
Well,
the
this is
delay.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you'll see
Let's
this.
let's ask Bert some questions while it's opening, and that way we'll never even know it happened. We'll just edit this all out.
Yeah.
There's one thing on the screensavers, because we were live as we are now.
Yes.
Everything had to work.
Yeah.
There was no cuts.
Yep.
You
There
were
was
on
that
the
one
air.
time that the keyboard stopped working. And they had to bring
Oh,
it.
really?
Leo and I just kept talking.
We
and
kept-
somebody
Oh, you
started
guys-
It's
connecting
probably
stuff.
Kevin Rose comes scurrying out, puts a new keyboard on there, and scurries back.
Yeah, this all of a sudden it'll jump when it gets to a
Right,
certain point.
right.
But these are really big files because they were printed really large.
Right.
And
so you're not working 360 DPI on something like this. You're working
this
higher
one
DPI.
we were working. Actually, we were working a little higher on this.
Yeah.
But it's a really massive
I'm
file.
surprised.
What's
that-
the color bit
Go ahead.
for it?
These were 16-bit.
Okay.
We were working 16-bit, and the thing was to introduce these printers. The second set was 3 other paintings, and these 2 were tattoos. The other 3 were body painting. So I had to dumb it down and make it look like real paint. So
right,
there were
because you
three
can do it
outfits.
so much more accurately in Photoshop than you could do on an actual flash.
Yeah, and also the time and then with the lights and the sweat and everything.
Right.
So everything was done after the fact.
How do you dumb down perfect painting?
It took quite a while. Like, it's like, make it dumber, make it dumber. So I had to add brush strokes in there. I had to really,
Grunge
break
it
things
up.
up, grunge it up, so it started looking, and even peel it in certain places,
Yeah.
crack it. I had a crack, so they made me take the cracks out later. Little cracks in the paint. They took
This is
those
one of the
out.
things I love about what Bert does is he takes, everything in Photoshop is perfect, and you take it and you make it look real by, in effect, distressing it, by making it grungy, by cracking it.
Yeah, add a little rust here. It's just like the little model
Just
here.
like the little
it's a little
rubber,
rubber, but
nut.
they painted the rust on it, and that's
They
what
do.
I do.
Is that the final step? You get it all ready, and then you add the sort of
I
aging?
create the shapes, the basic shapes, and then I will start adding. Well, nothing is flat color. Everything has a gradient. No matter how small, I'll add a little gradient.
That's interesting.
Right off the bat, because
nothing in life is flat.
Yeah, and unless it's being bombarded by some kind of a spotlight, everything has a slight gradient to it. And then I'll add a little bit of noise, or just in most cases, I don't use noise. I'll just use brushes that I've modified, so I can go in there and get more of a kind of like the spatter brush, to get more of a randomness to the
I
stroke.
remember when Photoshop 3 or 4 came out, and you had done the brushes, and you came and you showed us. I can't remember when they added
That was
brushes.
7. That was
7.
version 7.
That
yes.
was a big deal.
Yes,
and
that
they had
was.
the Bert Monroy brush,
Yeah,
the leaves.
there's 8 of my brushes are in there.
Yeah.
3 of them are right at the top level.
Yeah.
The little maple leaf and the
I
grass.
love the maple leaf and the grass.
That was fun to work on that, because the first time I went down to see where it was starting and where it was going, I looked at it and I said, I haven't seen anything this cool since Pixel Paint. And they all started laughing. I said, what? They said, guess who wrote it? And I said, who? And they said, Jerry Harris, one of the 2 guys who wrote Pixel Paint. He now works at Adobe, and he's the guy who originally wrote the brush engine, which allowed you to finally create brushes and modify them in ways that you could do just about anything.
When you're working with light, so the idea of a gradient is to kind of almost like shadows. Mm-hmm. Do you consider you have in your mind this is where the light source is?
Yes,
how do you work with light sources?
I do plan in Times Square. As I was creating things, I was just trying to look around where the light sources are, try to figure out where the shadows would be.
Because that's a complicated one.
Yeah,
because
everywhere. I couldn't take any reference shots.
Right.
My night photography wasn't that good.
Right.
So I made all the shadows up. But I look at things. I go through life with my eyes open. And so I look at the way things work. So if I see that there's these lights here, and then this light here is a red light, so that's going to cause a certain kind of a shadow that's going to conflict with the other 2 shadows and create certain hazes. In some cases, I'll make models for myself. I'll actually set up little things and then light them to see how they work.
See where the specular highlights
and see how things working, and then I can understand how this is going to work, and then I go in there and start painting.
Do you ever use ray tracing software at all? Have you played with it?
Yeah, I've done a lot of 3D stuff, but it's usually for commercial purposes.
Right.
Though I have been playing around a lot with the 3D functions in CS6.
Yeah, I didn't even know there were 3D functions in there.
Yeah, well, they were introduced a couple of versions ago, but in 6 they've enhanced it. The entire development team came to my studio and spent the day one day. We were all just talking about, what it should do, because I just felt that, you want to introduce people to 3D, it really has to be 3D. You need a stage. You need a way of having things interact with each other and cast shadows onto each other. So we had long discussions all day on how they should implement the tools to make it look more useful and still keep it easy.
Right.
That was still,
so you do a lot of
interesting.
3D work for commercial purposes?
Not a lot, but I will when it's necessary.
Yeah.
If they want a particular thing, a product that's going to animations. There's a lot of times when there'll be a little animation that'll move around or something, and so I'll create the objects as a 3D object so that I can move it around and twist it and stuff.
We're talking to Bert Monroy, BertMonroy.com, MONROY. It's Bert with an E.
Bert with an E,
Not
yes.
Bert with a U.
Yes.
And you can find out more. In fact, see that Times Square image on his website, BertMonroy.com.
Yes, it's there.
And your books are on your website, and you have prints for sale.
How many
Yeah.
books now?
I've got, in this country, I've got 9 books that I've done. I don't write a lot. I rather go straight to movie.
And that movie you'll find at lynda.com,
Lynda.com,
yeah, you're
He
doing
does
that.
great
In fact,
training
I'm
there.
going down there in July to shoot a bunch of new
Good.
stuff. The last thing I shot was the making of Times Square, which is a 3-part series.
Oh, wow.
The tools, techniques.
How many hours?
And, I don't know how many hours.
I'd love to see that.
20 hours, I think.
Yeah.
So LyndaLynda.com. Memberships are
Yes.
very affordable. That would be a reason to join Lynda.com just to see
that.
how you did Times
So
Square.
why 3D with just commercial and not into your personal?
Because I'm a painter, so I still like the 2D aspect of painting that way. I will use some 3D features to make things easier, like you were saying about cheating before. There's this little sign, the MTV sign, that has these little lines.
Yeah, I recall
along
that.
Along the edge. Well, in the old days, what I would do is I'd create a line, say 4 points thick, and then another line 1 point thick, and then blend between them in Illustrator. But then you have to still physically go in there and move them so that you get the depth. Whereas now, and this is finally opening, but now what I did was I created a pattern of stripes, made it into a 3D postcard, and moved the 3D postcard in perspective, so it made that part easy. Because that's just grunge work that I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
So I figured there's a case where I can cheat. Okay, so I did that.
So the tattooed ladies have finally opened. Wow,
now,
that was a long
look, it's still
Well, that's what I was going to say, the patience.
And this is
just to save a file.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, also we're working on a laptop here with.
But I can see why you sometimes go down and get a cup of coffee. Yeah.
And there she is.
So this young lady has 0 tattoos.
Right. She doesn't have any tattoos, but they were all created. Now, there's a lot more to these tattoos than meets the eye, because it was an inside joke this is low res, believe it or not. But
that was the low res version.
Yes.
I don't want to open the high res version.
Yeah, I just see that it's a low res version. How come it took so long to open? I don't understand.
Is that another?
Oh no! This is
There it is.
There we go.
There
Oh
it
my
is.
gosh!
Okay.
That looks so realistic.
The
Now-
skin texture and everything.
Fibonacci is a big thing with these guys when we were working on this. So everything here has in some way something to do with Fibonacci.
You're kidding.
The number of petals on the flowers, the number of bubbles right here.
So that's the series of 1,
Everything,
2,
yes.
3,
Yes, and
5, 8.
Exactly.
So each number in the sequence is the sum of the previous 2
Right.
numbers in the sequence.
Yeah. So everything.
So they just
here,
liked that, and so they said, whatever. I always want everything 1, 2, 3, 5, 8.
Yeah, there's 3 flowers. 1 flower of one kind, 2 of another. So everything had to be worked. And even and this is taking so long just to move these guys around. But on her finger here,
Look at that.
this is
The Celtic
somewhere
tattoo.
oh wait, it's the other hand. So down here, I'm going to move it this way rather than try to zoom in back and forth because it just takes forever.
Look at
but
this.
on her thumb, we'll see the Fibonacci formula.
Oh, that's
It's down
cool.
here. All these, even these designs had to be worked up.
And this was for Epson?
This was for Epson. Yeah, there was 5 illustrations, and there it is. Here it comes.
Oh, look at it. Here's the Fibonacci
Here's the form.
sequence
There
on
it
her
is.
finger.
There it is. It's on her finger.
So that's a little Easter egg. If anybody could find that, then they know,
Yeah,
I
it
should
was-
be looking more carefully.
Yeah.
And these flowers. In fact, the golden triangle is right here, and these flowers, the way they're set up, and everything. So everything had to be something that had to do with Fibonacci. It took so long to open. I hate to just shut it, but yeah, like the number of designs in the butterfly. See, here we
Wow.
see the other 2 flowers. One
Look at
flower
this.
down below, and then these 2 flowers making 3
Now,
flowers.
you probably sketched this 2D first,
Yeah.
and then you just fold it over the skin.
That was Jeff Shealy's job.
You didn't have to do
Oh,
He
that.
was
have
the
to
third guy. Yes. He was the
Have
4th
to do
guy.
that.
Yeah, he was the one that then wrapped them onto the thing. I had to make them so that they would fit that way.
Right.
And then he wrapped
He
them and
wrapped
had
them.
the skin tones come through.
Did a nice job.
Yeah, the skin
Nice
tones
job.
are phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that's
Coming
basically a transform, and then with
Yeah,
layers.
I did some, like for instance the wave on the arm and stuff. Some I had to do it because I had to create them that way.
Right.
But in many of the cases, he took a flat art and then wrapped it onto the arm.
How fun. Where did that campaign show? I'd love to see more of that.
It's I've never seen it myself, but it shows up in a few, mostly in trade publications, because the printers that they were introducing with these were not consumer printers. They were
the
all.
high-end
In
stuff.
fact, the last illustration, I don't even know if that printer has been introduced, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It had things that are fairly innovative and.
They had some Epson printers in Norway. They had
Yeah.
one of the giant,
They
all of the
printed all the exhibits
all of the prints
there.
in Norway were done on Epson
Yeah.
printers. It's just gorgeous,
Yeah.
especially the
Right,
black
codes
and
and
white.
stuff.
So hard to do good black and white digital prints, and they were doing
the
such good
Epson
jobs.
prints, the black and whites are gorgeous.
Really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But also, there's a lot of things to consider. First of all, the profile is being used, and of course, the paper. The paper that you use is going to make a big difference. Yeah,
Right.
Paper's huge.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite Epson papers?
Favorite? I like their enhanced matte.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
like the enhanced matte. I like their premium glossy. Depends on what I'm printing. Sometimes
Sometimes you'll
prefer
do matte, sometimes
and
glossy.
then there's canvas, which I do a lot of
Do
my
you
stuff
use?
on
I
canvas.
use the Exhibition a lot. Exhibition fiber. I use that
yes.
one a lot. I like that.
That is pretty cool.
And the Velvet Fine Art's the other one I use.
Let me just see if. Let's see. This is
These
a
are
small
just
file.
Ds.
Yeah,
They'll be smaller. They're
yeah.
not PSBs.
It's only a mere 145 megabytes.
Oh, that
This is
should be
a-
like
Your
that.
computer's done though.
Yeah.
It's kind of like.
I think you might have to reboot after
Yeah.
this show. I'll tell you. Holy cow,
Yeah.
Bert.
But this one here is this was the last of the body painted ones. It's already, halfway across.
Why? It's taking no time at all.
So this was painted, but what's here is that, this was painted on her body.
So it looks like she's wearing a dress, but that's all. She's
It's all
actually.
supposed to be painted. Yeah, so it's all, if we look at some of these areas down here.
You grunged
this was
it
the
up.
cleanest one because of the particular printer.
Right.
But there are when I get way down here, you'll see that it starts to look more like and all these things had to be created. So
Wow.
it was pretty involved.
Okay,
And you
so
can
the
start to
obvious
see.
question is why not just shoot the model in the dress?
Because it's not. It wanted the whole thing was the colors, the painting, and it was the idea of the body paint.
Okay.
So
Because they can.
Yeah.
Because they've got Greg Gorman and Bert Monroy and
Jeff Shuey and Rob Carr.
and
yeah.
Rob Carter and Jeff Shuey.
Yeah, so
Wow,
we
look at
did
that.
all these.
That is great.
It looks absolutely
I
beautiful.
love that.
And the retouching. Oh my God, you should have seen.
So
the
what was
retouching.
the model wearing?
She was nude.
Just
She
completely
was nude. In
yeah.
fact, you want to talk retouching here? Let's just look at the model. We keep closing stuff here because I still got a lot of things open. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the.
There is a problem.
That's another problem.
Bert never closes a tab. He never.
Yeah, just get used to it. Yeah, after a while. That same girl we just saw. Here she is.
I
here.
think we got to do a Bert Monroy magic show where we do Bert Monroy Photoshop magic.
So here,
Just
this is the original retouch shot, and you're going to see the amount of retouching that goes into this.
Oh yeah.
Because
Even of the model,
even at the model, you think, wow,
as
she's
beautiful as she is.
But wait till you see all those blemishes, because they're normal people. Models
Right.
are normal people.
Right.
But when you see them in a magazine, they're perfect.
Right.
And there's all kinds of controversy
That's
with
why
that
I
lately,
never
so-
date supermodels.
Is that the reason?
Well, I remember back in the day when I was doing commercial work. I remember I go through the head sheets and I pick up, and I was doing a shoot. I had like 18 models that I was working with. I wasn't shooting, but I was in charge of it all. And I remember this one girl comes in. This girl looked terrible, and I said, "Who is she? What is she doing here?" And she said, "Oh, you hired her." I didn't hire her. and I look at the headshot. It's like, that's not her. And then she goes into the makeup room. 2 minutes later,
That's
she
her.
comes out and whoa, it's
Yeah.
her. But
Just shows you.
So,
just shows you.
2 minutes or 2 hours?
yeah. Here, when we're getting close to her, right here she is. And
She's pretty gorgeous.
She's gorgeous. She's really
Yeah.
pretty.
Yeah.
Right there. But if we look at the retouch layer, which is right here, and I turn that off, and there you can see that.
Oh, wow.
There's veins in her eyes, or look at her teeth. Watch what happens to her teeth. Yeah, they got
Oh,
cleaned
wow,
up.
look at
you had
that.
little lines on her face. All
Yeah,
those things go away.
yeah.
And here, look at this.
This should make everybody feel a lot better.
Yeah.
People don't look like
Look at
this.
that beautiful skin. But when
Yeah.
you take this off, look,
Yeah,
little normal human
Because
blemishes.
she's been
Yeah.
in the sun.
Normal human
Isn't that
blemishes.
awesome? And they're probably not using the heel tool here to get rid of those. They're probably a
No,
little more
Rob's a little
sophisticated.
more involved.
Sophisticated than that.
He's pretty
I use the heel too.
Bert, what are you working on now? What's next for Bert Monroy besides doing a show for TWiT? Cross them
Well,
fingers.
my newest painting, I'll tell you what. Actually, here, after the train station, I'm glad this one's open. After the train station, which took 11 months,
Yeah.
I was really frustrated, so I decided I had to do something that was a little more free.
Yeah.
And I did this one. So
I love this, though. This is all
it-
about specular highlights and light and what
Oh,
it
it's
looks
good.
like.
Yeah.
But when you get in close, you start seeing that there's a lot of stuff that's just, as you can see there, it's just brush strokes. And when you come in here real
Oh, isn't that
close,
interesting?
it's just brush strokes.
It's just brush strokes, yeah.
So after
What
doing...
a master you are, Bert.
So after spending 11 months, I needed something that was free.
This is more
So I
like a
created
painting. This
Yes.
is almost like that photorealistic style.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, after 4 years on Times Square, I decided I wanted to do something that was totally painting.
Yeah.
But,
And have you? Are you?
yeah, I finished it already.
Are you doing it in oil?
No, it's
It's still Photoshop.
The only thing I do traditionally is sketch. But this is the newest painting which I introduced at Photoshop World recently.
I love it that this is your freeform painting.
This is freeform. It had to be broken up into grids because to be able to see what it is. But here,
oh, look at that!
It's totally. If you get in real close,
that is beautiful.
It makes no sense whatsoever.
Right.
Okay, but when you pull back, I'm just curious to see if you can figure out what it is by looking at it there.
I know what it is.
Yeah.
You can tell?
Well, I mean, what you mean? Obviously, we're looking through a rainy window.
Oh, that's very good.
At cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, at cars, they're very good. You know, there's people that even though once they know what it is, they still don't see it. It's the second story of a double-decker bus, the front window, evening rush hour in Rome in the rain. It's called Rome and Chill. And
Love it.
And it's all painted. It's all little
beautiful.
shapes.
If people go to BertMonroy.com.
So your medium is light.
My medium is light.
Just like any
paint
photographer.
with light.
Yeah.
Paint with
just
light.
like any photographer.
He's
we didn't get to learn how to make good images out of bad photos. So
we
you
ran
know
out
what?
of time already?
Yeah.
Already, it's been an hour. You want more
Has it been
time?
an hour?
See, I told you an hour wouldn't be enough.
So you're coming back soon, right?
I guess
because the audience, we can't leave them hanging there.
We didn't do anything for photographers. You're right. We just played.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll give you a tease.
All right.
All right.
So they can know in case we do it again.
You mean
bring
when?
you back.
When?
Here, I'll show you. I was going to take this shot here. I was going to take, and here it is in moonlight. Okay, I was going to take this bad old shot taken in Florence, early morning sun.
Not that bad.
Okay?
All right.
But it's kind of not much to it.
The sky's boring.
And a picture of clouds.
Yeah.
Pretty bad shot, nothing to it.
Yeah.
And then download it from the web, doing a search for a full moon.
Oh, what could we do with the
So I
three
was
of those?
going to take those three, and I was going to set up a whole story of a little ancient village and some person thinking of something at night. And using those three images, I was then going to create this scene here and there.
Oh, it just got a lot more interesting. I could see a vampire coming out of one of those
know.
buildings.
So
It's great how you use that sunlight streak.
yes, and then it became a moonlight streak.
Yeah.
So I got 2 minutes.
Yeah.
2 minutes. Okay, I'll tell you
Sure.
what. See the smokestacks? See the smoke coming out of the things here? Let's do that.
All right.
Just for fun.
Because there was no smoke coming out of the stacks.
No, because so I got the clouds here.
Right.
Just the clouds. Right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my channels here. I'm going to look at the red channel, the green channel. I'm going to find the one that's got the most contrast, which I already know is the red channel.
Usually that's the red channel.
Yeah,
is
so
where
I'm
all
going
the
to go in there and I'm
contrast
going to invert it.
goes.
Okay?
Ooh.
Now I'm going to get in closer, right here to this little area right here, right there. I'm going to go into my levels, and in levels I'm going to bring in my whites, get them much stronger, into a pure white, about like that, right there like that. Click OK. Now, with white,
It looks like we've elected a new pope, ladies and gentlemen. Puffy little clouds of smoke.
so I'm going to just go in here and let me get a softer brush. Let me get a soft edge brush. And in my brush engine, I'll just very quickly bring in the spacing so I got a nice hard edge. There we go. A solid brush. I'm just going to kind of paint this area here to white as well. Right? Just this little area right here like that. Right there. So now, I'm going to take that little puffy cloud right there and select it. And turn it into a brush.
Oh.
The aha moment.
There you go. So now I'll create a new file.
Look at that. And this was what was new in Photoshop 7.
This was in 7,
Yeah.
So I'm going to take that brush and I'm going to use this black here, right there. And I'm going to use that brush I just created. So I got here and we got all these brushes. See, these three here are mine. These two
I
are
use
now.
that grass and the maple leaf all the time. Love those.
There's what I just created, which pretty much does that, right? But when I go in here to modify it, I go into my brush engine, right? And I'm going to go in there and give it some spacing. A little spacing. Go into my shape dynamics, where I'm going to go in there and turn off pen pressure, but I am going to do a little size jitter. A little size jitter.
That's to make it variable, so
Yeah.
it doesn't look like it's all one thing.
And then angle. Little angles like that.
Rotate them a little.
Just a little. And then, and I'll bring down the opacity a little bit, and bring down the size a little, and I started creating all these little...
Oh my gosh.
Smoke!
Make it a little bigger.
It's got
And then we got a little
smoke!
smoke coming out. There's the smoke.
It's not smoke, it's puffy little clouds.
So that's how the
I'm telling you, it's a magic show. It's a magic act. Bert Monroy's magic act.
Okay.
You're the best. BERTMONROY.com. I got a brush. I'm going to go get you. And we got to have you back soon.
I'll
come back
It's fun.
soon.
Yes, yes.
It just
I hope
reminds me
people
of how
learn
much
something
fun we
from
always
this.
have
Oh,
with
yeah.
Bert Monroy on the
Chat room loves you.
You're the greatest. He is. He's the Bob Ross of Photoshop. Happy little trees. Thanks, everybody. CatherineHall.net. Go there now. See all our great stuff. If you go to the blog, you'll see her tip of the week, which is a good one.
Thank you.
An impetuous opportunist. Or opportunistically impetuous. Or something.
There you go.
Like that.
Presumptuous.
Presumptuous. Next week, do we know who's next week?
No, we don't know who is our
I'll
anniversary
tell you,
show yet.
it's our anniversary show, so please come back. 1 year we've been doing this now with Catherine.
We have.
It's been a great thrill and an honor and a privilege and so much fun to
Yeah, thank
have
you.
Bert on
Such
our
a pleasure to have you here, Bert.
Thank you.
penultimate
It was fun.
show.
It's been fun.
Long live the perfect pixel.
Oh, and then
Yay,
and then
indeed.
actually tomorrow night, if people want to, I'm going to be on Thomas Hawk and Lois Carroll's show, Photo Talk.
That's great. They do a great show.
Yeah, so I'll be on
Fantastic.
Hangout tomorrow night.
Good.
For anyone that wants
That's
to
a
tune
Google
in.
Hangout. Yeah.
Yeah.
We do a Google Hangout with Trey. He's in New Zealand now. I guess
He is in New Zealand.
Yeah,
And
but he's still doing it.
He seems very happy, and he is making some beautiful images.
Have
out
you
there.
seen the pictures of the ponies, his daughters
I
and the
haven't seen
ponies?
the
Oh
ponies.
my gosh.
I've just
And
seen
gorgeous
some of the mountain
images,
stuff.
landscapes.
So it seems like
Beautiful.
he's suiting him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He joins us Monday. We do the Trey Radcliffe's Variety Hour, Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, if you want more photo shows. This show, of course, is every Tuesday, 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern Time. Let's see, 1:30 plus 13:30 plus 7 is 20:30 UTC. And, of course, after the fact, you can always download all 51 weeks of episodes at twit.tv/photo. Thanks, Catherine.
Leo.
Thanks, Bert.
Thanks, Bert.
Thanks
Thank
to
you.
all of you for joining us, and we'll see you next
been fun.
week on the TWiT Photo. Really fun. Ozzy, it was fun, wasn't it? You learned a lot, didn't you, Ozzy?
Ozzy wants Bert to come back.
Yes. Ozzy saying, please come back, please. Wonderful.